The meeting was entirely unremarkable. It didn't happen under the dim, forgiving neon lights of a crowded nightclub, nor at some holiday resort where people routinely slip their real lives into their luggage. It happened in the most mundane, predictable setting imaginable, a normal, everyday professional workspace. There was no pretense, no atmosphere of secrecy, and absolutely no reason to think anything was amiss. From the very first introduction, the connection didn't just spark, it detonated. He was, by every metric available, a perfect alignment. The chemistry was instantaneous, an effortless conversational rhythm that felt like finding a rare, missing piece of a puzzle. They shared the same humor, the same outlook on life, and curiously, a deeply rooted, shared faith. In a world of shallow interactions, finding someone who mirrored her values so cleanly felt like a literal answer to a prayer. The alignment was so absolute, so uncanny, that it felt like a 100,000% match. And then there was his left hand. In a standard work environment, a wedding band is a shield, a boundary, a piece of universal social shorthand. But his ring finger was completely bare. There was no pale indentation of skin, no habituated tugging of a metal band, and no visual indicator whatsoever to suggest he belonged to anyone else. It wasn't the kind of environment where someone takes off a ring to play a part or to cheat. To any rational observer, he was a completely single man walking through the world, radiating an intense, undeniable magnetic energy. Every modern romance, however, has a silent, invisible character, the best friend with an undeniable talent for digital detective work. A few days into the intoxicating whirlwind of this new connection, the bestie did what besties do. She opened up social media and began a standard precautionary background check. It was supposed to be a harmless exercise, a quick scroll to see his hobbies, or maybe find an old, embarrassing high school photo to laugh about. Instead, she unearthed a parallel reality. There, preserved in the pristine, colorful grid of Instagram and Facebook, was an entirely different life. He wasn't just taken, he was profoundly rooted. He was married. And the true kicker to the entire situation? He was the father of 1-year-old twins. The photos painted a picture of absolute domestic bliss. His wife looked incredibly sweet, the kind of gentle, warm soul you couldn't help but like instantly. There were milestone photos, family celebrations, and the exhausting, beautiful chaos of raising toddlers. The shock of the discovery was a physical blow. How could a man who claimed to share a fierce, uncompromising faith walk into a workplace, strip off his wedding ring, and pursue an intense emotional connection while a sweet wife and 2 infants waited for him at home? Armed with the devastating proof, a confrontation was inevitable. The stomach-churning anxiety of pulling back the curtain on someone you are deeply attracted to is a heavy burden to carry, but her values demanded absolute clarity. She looked him in the eye, met into the tension of the moment, and asked the ultimate question, "Are you single or not?" His response was a masterclass in modern relational gymnastics. He didn't stutter, he didn't panic, and he didn't strictly deny the existence of his family. Instead, he executed a smooth, calculated pivot. He looked at her and admitted quite calmly that he was not single, but that he was in a polyamorous relationship. He claimed that despite what the traditional social media profiles looked like, his marriage operated under a completely different set of rules. It was a highly convenient label, an immediate safety net designed to reframe his behavior from deceptive to progressive. But the moment that card was played, the entire dynamic shifted. The innocent, wholesome flirting evaporated, replaced by an accelerated, intensely sexual barrage of text messages. The subtle boundaries he had respected before were completely demolished. He began openly discussing visiting her, shifting the narrative from a casual workspace crush to an active, physical, and aggressive pursuit. He began leaning heavily into the immense chemistry they shared, using the established connection as leverage to pull her deeper into his orbit, completely regardless of the cost. This is where the narrative splits into a brutal, exhausting internal conflict. On one side stands her core identity. She is a woman of strong faith, possessing a rigid moral compass that has guided her entire life. She has never been the other woman type of person. In fact, she actively despised the very concept of infidelity. When she looks at the digital photos of his sweet wife, she feels an overwhelming wave of empathy. She does not want to be the architect of another woman's heartbreak. She does not want to be the secret hidden away in the dark margins of a young family's life. But on the other side lies a terrifyingly powerful, irrational attachment. Logic says to run, faith says to block the number. The reality of the 1-year-old twin says to delete his existence from her phone permanently. Yet the human heart rarely complies with logic. The attachment feels like a physical weight, a rip current that defies common sense and moral clarity. She tried to do the right thing. She attempted to cut off the contact entirely, to let the fire die out from a lack of oxygen. She stopped initiating, tried to build an emotional fortress around herself, and willed herself to resist his charm. But he simply would not let the line go slack. Every single time she pulled away, he reeled her back in with effortless precision. He kept the conversation alive, dropping just enough charm, just enough familiarity, and just enough of that irresistible, unbelievable vibe to make her hand shake as she held her phone. Resisting him has become less of a choice and more of a daily, exhausting battle against an addiction. He continues to speak of faith, he continues to deny that he is doing anything wrong, and he continues to text with an intensity that blurs the lines of her reality. The story doesn't have a clean, wrapped-up ending because she is living in the messy, agonizing middle of it right now. She stands at a profound crossroads, caught between a rare, intoxicating emotional connection and the devastating reality of a hidden life, while the phone continues to buzz in the dark.